Tanse, Anin Sikwa, Atlanate, Hakoda, Tanse, welcome, bonjour, to the first Community Connections of the 2021-2022 school year. The first one where I'm actually recording this from campus, and it feels good to be back on campus. This is going to be airing on the 28th, so Orange Shirt Day. Just wanted to remind everybody that we've got some awesome programs going on. Make sure you're checking out your emails for some of those things. And hopefully you guys have gotten your orange shirts and maybe taken some pictures for the promos that we have going on online. My name is Derek Yee. I work as the Indigenous Student Center Coordinator for Asitoskatayak, which is the Indigenous Student Center at Saskatoon. And before we start any of our programming, we always like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 4 and Treaty 6 and homeland of the Métis people, and we acknowledge the connection between our Indigenous people and the land. And now more than ever, particularly with the events that have been unfolding, it's important for us to acknowledge the connection. So thank you, Kinos Komitan. Today is an exciting day. I have with me a satirist, a comedian, a columnist with the CBC, a show producer, and a good friend of mine, Mr. Shawn Cuthand. Welcome. Nice to see you.
That's great. That's what's up in Mohawk.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I love learning.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's been, it's been up and down with all of the pandemic stuff, and every day is like a new message and what we're doing. And I feel like I'm happy to be back, but at the same time, there's always trepidation when you look at the numbers and stuff, but I'm happy to have you remote. And I'm looking at the art behind you. Man, that's really cool. I might have to ask you some questions about that in a second. So you agreed to do this. This is really awesome. And I would like to start just the same way I usually start all of these interviews. Can you give me a little bit of background, where you're from, home community and stuff?
Yeah, I'm from Saskatoon. I grew up in Confed Park, so I was an urban Indian in Saskatoon. But my roots are from Little Pine Reserve and as well as Akwesasne Mohawk Nation in Ontario.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So are you Cree and Mohawk? Is that?
Yeah.
Awesome. And split 50-50?
Yeah.
So which one of your parents is Mohawk and which one is Cree?
My mom's Mohawk and then my dad's Cree.
So I'm learning all the time about the differences between, different tribes and stuff. And what is the major difference between Mohawk and Cree, or is there things that that you've noticed between the way that your mom and dad do different ceremonies or protocol or anything?
Yeah, there's the hand drumming is different from that part of on the Southern Ontario area. They have a different style of hand drumming, and also just the languages are really different as well.
Oh, right on. Did either of your parents speak the language?
No, we just know little key phrases and stuff like that.
Right on.
My mom's parents spoke it, yeah, and then they spoke a little bit of it growing up as well. But.
Oh, cool. So what line of work are your parents in? Your dad is pretty well known around Saskatoon, right? As a columnist?
Yeah, he's a columnist for the Star Phoenix, and as well he's in media production, works on some documentaries or some TV shows, stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah. What was your experience like growing up in Confed, being Indigenous and growing up? You're what, 30 years old now, or?
Me, I'm 37 now.
Oh God, you look great. Now I feel really bad. What was it like growing up in Confed back then in the 90s?
It was pretty cool. Like I think our school, it was pretty multicultural. Like we had like it was like a melting pot of different students. Like we had a bunch of First Nations kids, bunch of white kids, bunch of Laotian, all that. So it was pretty cool just to be exposed to that kind of multicultural setting growing up. Like we still had like there was still like a group of native kids, so you didn't really feel like an outsider.
Right on. Which school did you go to, by the way?
Like the Confed Park Elementary School.
Oh, okay. And where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bedford for a bit, but then I had like the classic case of dropping out.
Yeah.
Dropping out and going to Nutana, but then I ended up finishing off at the Royal West when I was like 19. So.
Oh, right on. So the classic case of dropping out. What do you attribute that to?
Well, just in high school, I just like, I don't know. I went through like that phase of just being like, a moody teenager, hated the world and would rather like skip school and smoke weed.
Yeah.
So that was like where I was at like 17, and then I went to a couple other schools, but then finally we like cracked down and finished it at Royal West. So that was pretty good.
Well, I'm glad you cracked down. There's a lot of sad stories where people have a hard time getting back into it. So right now, you're kind of everywhere. You're doing a lot of comedy stuff. You got a podcast, and you're part of the satirical news site, thefeather.ca. Were you always pursuing these kind of performing arts, or is this something that happened a little later?
Yeah, it kind of like it happened later. Like I was earlier, like in my 20s, I was more into like producing music shows, like metal and hardcore punk type of shows. I put on all ages shows, and that was I was really into that for a while. And then like when I was done with that, like that was kind of like my creative outlet, was like putting shows together, like, and so then without that for a while, I was kind of like trying to find something, and then I just really started like taking a liking towards stand-up comedy, like just with different comedians that I was watching, and like the podcast scene was like kind of blowing up. Like all these comedians had podcasts, and there was like this one podcast called the Ice House Chronicles, where it showed like these comedians, they were pretty much in the green room recording a podcast, and like some would go out on stage and do their set, and the podcast would continue, and then they would come back and talk about their set. And I just was like, I don't know, just really glued to that and interested in that type of performance. And then when I finally was able to discover that there were open mics in Saskatoon, because I didn't even really like notice them or know that you like where you could do comedy. And then they started kind of popping up, and then I noticed the Comedy Lab, and that's when I got into that. Did my first set there, and like I think it was like a nightmare, but also maybe a blessing, because like on my second set that I did, I ended up falling off the stage when I went to grab the mic, and it was so embarrassing, and it was like you could hear like a pin drop in the room, because like the audience were just like all terrified, and then like I got up and the spotlight was just in my face, and I had the mic, and I was just shaking, and I started to do my set, and like the crowd was like pity clapping me. But
it's really only uphill from there. I think I was there that night.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Right, like now in the community comedy scene here in Saskatoon, there is a great deal of Indigenous comedians. I would say there's a great representation. Were you intimidated with anything having to do with culture doing that, or was that something? Do you think that your culture enhanced your ability to do that?
Um, I think it was like for me, like it excited me to like try and take like what like my grandpa was like a traditional like storyteller. Like he kept like stories in his head that pass on, and so like I just thought like it would be cool to kind of like honor that of my grandpa and like do it in like this more like um new age way, I guess you could call it. And then like so when I first started writing this, like I kind of like did focus a lot on certain like um cultural things, or just like pointing out like the history of our country in a joke. And like because like the first joke that I wrote was this one about ducks, where it's like I'm talking about this situation with ducks having their pond drained, and talking about the conversation that the ducks might have. But then as it goes on, you're like realizing like, hey, these ducks kind of sound like they're indigenous people, you know, like they're going through what indigenous people went through. And then like that was kind of like a little trick too, like of like if you can feel sorry for these ducks, you know, like why can't you feel sorry for the indigenous people? Yeah.
I think that's brilliant, and I would say that one of the things that is pretty well known is that there's a lot of comedy within the Indigenous communities, and it's been a historical thing. And with stories, it feels like it just really lends itself to that. And I've watched you become one of my favorite comedians in the country, really. And I think that your ability though to draw those sort of parallels between reconciliation and in a comedic way, it's a lot more palatable for people, right? Because if you're giving them something to laugh about, it's easier to sort of think about things as opposed to something where it's just sort of being pounded at you.
Yeah.
So with that, do you believe that there's a place for a really solid message about reconciliation and truth within comedy, or do you think you like to try to keep them separately?
Like I think there's definitely like I think I like to just mainly like by bringing it up, at least you get people talking about it or thinking about it.
Yeah.
So like that's what I like to do. Like sometimes like I'll even kind of laugh about it to myself sometimes. Like through my set, you might hear the word reconciliation like 3 times maybe, you know. But it's like just gotta like get it in there. And then also like it's funny too, like sometimes you do jokes where you feel like the audience is like super hesitant to
Yeah.
to laugh. They're like, can I laugh at this?
Well, that's an interesting question. Where do you suppose the line is for non-Indigenous people hearing something like that? Have you ever gotten a laugh from a joke and thought, that's almost feels weird that they're laughing, or are you more open about that type of thing?
Yeah, well like with my like with my intro joke that I do, like how I say like I'm a single native in my 30s with no kids, and then it's like I'm like a rare white buffalo, you know? And like and sometimes like I heard like this one guy in the crowd one time, he like was like, yeah, white, you know, and it just like it was like his point was like that like he wanted to emphasize that like white is the good one, you know, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you feel good that somebody's engaged, but on the other hand, it's like, well, maybe that's a little.
Yeah.
So what would you say if there was, people out there watching this interview and they've always kind of thought, I'm a good storyteller and I'd like to get into it. Do you have any advice for somebody that wants to start getting into comedy or performing?
Yeah, I would say just like what I did, like even it was probably like a few years before I even like actually touched a microphone, was that I actually like wrote down some like stories, like I typed out in my laptop, like I made like a word sheet of just like some stories that I wanted to try as jokes. And then like, yeah, I would say just when you do that, then you have a better chance of like making up a set when you want to try it for the first time. So like you want to like at least have a little bit to pull from your first time, so that you're not just like, you just get up there, say a couple things, and then you're done and don't know what to do.
I I always tell people just to come watch an open mic before, if they're interested, because they're probably going to find out it's not quite that good. I could probably do this in some ways.
Yeah.
Did you come and see a few before you went up, or did you just walk up on stage your first time?
No, I was like, I kind of like, I was lurking around the comedy lab for probably a couple months before I went up. I would just like show up, and uh, there was like this one time I was like sitting in the front row, and Fabian, he was doing he was doing a set, and then something like the microphone got caught on the stage, and he kept like trying to like pull it up, and like he was trying to blame me, saying that I was holding the mic cord, but then I like, it was just hooked. And then and then when I like unhooked it, like I made like I said like a little joke or something that made like the audience laugh, and then he was like, oh well, I got nothing for that. And it was just like, at the time too, I kind of felt bad though, like because I kind of felt like I killed the momentum in his set or something. I think he like actually posted that video on his Facebook. But yeah, that video too was like before I even tried a set, and I was just like lurking at the comedy lab.
It's interesting to think about that, because now you do a lot of shows. You do shows on Zoom in other countries and continents. Like, where's the furthest place you've done a Zoom show?
um, I think probably London. Yeah.
So you're getting up at like 6 in the morning to do a show that they're at in the evening, or what?
Yeah, well, there was this one, they like had a lunchtime open mic that was in London on Zoom, and I'd sign up and I'd have to wake up at 6 in the morning to go on it. And but that was like when we were like really hurting for comedy, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And like it actually like rejuvenated me a little bit. But yeah, it was still like really dry.
So, did they understand your material when it comes down to, like, Canadian Indigenous uh, nuances, or was that something that they didn't have any idea about what you were even saying?
Well, for those types of, like, even like for when I do like ones in the States, like for those type of open mics, I would just kind of use it to try and do material that was meant for like a broader audience. So like, yeah, because like sometimes that is kind of like a problem. Like you go somewhere, even like one time I went, I did two different shows in Ottawa, and I did like, I was relying heavy on my native material, and like the one night it totally killed, and then the second night it like one joke like fell so flat that I was like, wow, you people really don't know much about Buffalo. So,
You can get a pretty good temperature gauge on the sociological evolution of whether or not people are engaged in Indigenous affairs when you're doing a joke on stage, because sometimes people would just try to make it political right away. You've been doing shows like with bands on reserve and stuff. Do you find that doing those shows is different, or that there's a different sort of energy there, or is it all the same?
Yeah, like we did a couple reserve shows where it was kind of like their, I guess, like community outreach day or something. So like the community would meet up at the band hall and they had a dinner and entertainment, and we would show up, and like there it's different. Like some reserves, they would like be really loud and sound like they're having a good time, and then other reserves, they're like just really shy, you know,
They're
like,
reserved.
yeah, because like we performed once at this one show where like we were on the stage, and in front of the stage there was tables, but only like a couple people sat at those tables, and everyone sat at the tables against the walls.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of know where that's going when you see that.
Yeah.
So right now, apart from doing shows basically all over Canada, you have a couple other projects. You started thefeather.ca. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what that's about?
Yeah, well, Ryan Moccasin, he actually started the Feather, and then he recruited Danny and I to join him to start making videos.
And that's that Danny Knight, is that right? From
Yeah,
South.
Danny Knight. Yeah, so like at first, it was more kind of like just an article, satirical articles, and then we started doing videos to be kind of like a mix of like the Daily Show with an Indigenous twist, and then we we were doing that, and then probably a couple of years after that, we brought along another mutual friend, Musquella Raw, who just really helped us boost our production value with like filming and stuff and the editing. And then, so yeah, we've been working on that. We have a grant for season 4 that we're working on, and then we're planning to premiere that at the Roxy Theater. We're gonna do the first episode will probably be about 30 minutes, and we're gonna screen that at the Roxy, and then after that we're gonna do a comedy performance as well. So
Oh, cool. Do you have a date or?
yeah, it's gonna be October 29th.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're just getting the details all together this week, and hopefully we'll have like the official event out next week.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you guys got a grant for your 4th episode. Is that a hard process or?
Well, I think we totally got surprised by it. Like the first time we applied for one, we just applied for like the basic funding, and we ended up getting it. And then ever since then, we kind of just been, I guess, moving on up, and like we're instead of like being an individual now, we're kind of more of a group entity, so we can apply for more.
I have a lot of students that get a little bit daunted when it comes down to applying for bursaries or grants and stuff. Uh, would you have any advice for somebody who's got a bit of that? You
Yeah,
know,
like I think like I think you just it's hard to say, but like you just gotta like start doing it. You know, like once you start writing it, and like you might think like, oh, it's not like professional sounding enough or anything, but like, you just gotta like finish it and handing it in, and that's half the battle. And then like you'll be surprised like who they like choose, like yeah, I think like sometimes like and then, you know, like there might be like some of these like grants that probably don't even get much people actually applying. So like your chances are good if you just actually finish the application and throw it in.
Yeah, that's kind of been what I've been saying too, is that the hardest part is just having enough confidence to just start filling that stuff out, and it doesn't have to be perfect. The worst that can happen is you don't get the grant, but I've seen a lot of people surprised with getting awards, more so I think than people being let down.
Yeah.
And so you also have a podcast too. How did that come about?
Yeah, so that was like, I guess that, yeah, you could say that is like our pandemic baby. Like the whole so Danny and I, like, our good mutual comedian friend Ben Boss, you know Ben.
Yeah.
He heard that there was this podcast network that was starting up called Comedy Here Often, and they were just looking for a broad range of comedy podcasts that they could all put together. And Ben actually like recommended us to them, and for like an indigenous one, and then they reached out to us, and we like just made a proposal or whatever, and then they went for it. And we were on we're on a 1 year deal with them, where like we basically just gotta keep putting out the podcast, and they help distribute it and stuff, and then we get to keep the rights to it as well. So like if something happens where we want to like move on and do something else with it, we still get to keep like our our catalog of episodes or whatever.
That's awesome that you guys did that. So, uh, do you, or the content of it, it's called Real Deadly, is that right?
Yeah.
And the content is indigenous issues, or
Um,
how would you say? I don't know. That sounds a little
no,
clinical,
like,
doesn't it?
it's funny because like we just kind of like, at first it was gonna be like uh two guys tearing down the trends of the internet or something. That was kind of like gonna be our pitch. But then I think it just it just kind of like turned into like us talking about our lives in comedy. Like, and yeah, like I guess like we kind of like ended up having like enough going on and enough stuff to talk about that it was like kind of, yeah, just well, and plus we do like review like different trends and stuff. Like I one of my favorite things is to just scroll the Reddit public freak out and find like
Yeah, yeah.
funny videos to talk about on there. But
Well,
yeah.
it's a hilarious podcast, and I love it. And it does feel like you guys, like you and Danny and I, you collaborate probably most centrally, right? That's who you work with a lot. It feels like you guys have picked up a lot of speed. Like I got a message from you on Facebook where you said, "I'm doing a fringe show." And
Yeah.
my knee-jerk reaction was, "Isn't a fringe show like kind of a one-person play about
Yeah.
something obscure like making bracelets out of gopher bones or something, you know what I mean?" Like I thought it was a very artsy sort of thing. And you
Yeah.
ended up doing just a comedy showcase, is that right? How did
Yeah.
that go, and what were you thinking?
Um, well, like I had actually like um I actually went to the Winnipeg Fringe in like 2000, I think it was 18 or 19, and I was part of a show called the Woke Comedy Hour, and it was basically like a show for to showcase BIPOC comedians, and they they invited me out, and I did like, I think I did 3 or 4 shows over the course of like 3 nights, and it was just like, it was in my first year of comedy, and it was like it was just such a cool experience for me, like just to to go to a city like Winnipeg, and like I boarded at another comedian's house, and it was like walking distance to the Fringe. So it was just like a cool experience. And then like after that, like I just like I really wanted to do something like that for Saskatoon, and so then when this year, like I was just kind of like I was on my laptop and just like seeing things play out, and the Fringe was coming back after not being on hiatus a year before, and it was only going to be doing local acts. So then I just thought my chances were greater to apply. And then I remember like I filled out the application, and I just like sat there for like the longest time. And I think it was probably even like a couple days. And then finally I hit apply. And then like I told Danny, like I told Danny, I was like, I applied for this show. Like, do you want to go in on it with me? And he was like, yeah. So we were in on it. And then like, yeah, it was just like super lucky. It was a lottery, and we got chosen. And like I felt really lucky because like there's been like lots of local Fringe acts who apply for the lottery and haven't got picked, you know?
Yeah.
There are some acts who performed this year who it was their first time getting a chance after applying for many years. So like it was just a really lucky year to apply. And yeah, so I just wanted to do a comedy showcase for Saskatoon, just to show the little scene that we have developing, you know, because like it's pretty fun. Like just like there's a lot of us that have started around the same time and have kind of like stuck together.
Yeah.
The past few years, and so I just wanted to like bring us all together and do our best 10 minutes. And
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I first heard it, I thought it sounded a little out of left field, but it turned out to be an amazing hit. It sold out every one of the 7 shows, I think, right? And you gave a lot of people a shot that don't have that type of opportunity. So, will you do it again?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll definitely apply again. It's just who knows what the situation will be like next year. Like it was funny. Like we were originally gonna be on the outdoor stage, which I was pretty nervous about because just like doing comedy like outdoors, like the acoustics and everything just not be good. But then luckily they had a spot open up at the refinery, and so that was like the perfect spot.
Oh, it's a lot better than just the laughter going up to the clouds and you can't hear it. Well, I'm really glad that you did that, and it was the Funny Bone Schmomedy Zone, right? That was the name of it. And you guys have an open mic that you're running now, routine, is that right? Or?
Yeah, now we're going out of the Fox and Hounds every second Wednesday. So with the schedule, our next one is on the 29th.
Oh, that's awesome. So that'll be tomorrow, I guess. Yeah. I see how quick I am then.
Yeah.
Would you invite Indigenous comedians, first timers, to come out to this? Is that what it is, or is this more of a pro stage that you guys are putting on at Fox?
This is just it's just an open mic for everyone, like people to practice or like work on their bits, and then first timers to try it out, newcomers to try it out. But yeah, just another way to get up there in due time. Like that's how me and Danny look at it. Like, because like when we first started the Copper Mug, we started it because we mainly wanted to practice doing like more longer sets, like over 10 minutes. And so then at the Copper Mug, we just would like go. I just like sometimes I swear we would practice a 20-minute set at the Copper Mug. People would just be sitting there.
You guys playing pool and you can still hear the VLTs in the background and stuff. Yeah, I remember. Well, it's awesome, and I'm very, very proud of all of the things that you guys have done for our community and for the Indigenous community as a whole. Do you have any parting words that you would like to send for wisdom to the students watching? Anything that inspirational? Did I just put you on the spot there?
Well, I would say uh, you all have a voice. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't
Wow.
don't be scared of the repercussions.
I love that. That's a great message to end on.
Well, that's like for me personally, I used to feel like that a lot. Like I'd be worried to put myself out there. And I think it kind of like had a lot to do with um like what my dad went through putting out articles. Cause like he would put out like when we were growing up, like in Confed Park, we would get like handwritten letters with no return address in our mailbox of just like hate mail about like his columns and stuff like that. So that always kind of like gave me a weird feeling about like speaking out. But then like yeah, it took me a while to get over that.
That's a very inspirational reclamation of your voice, and I love to hear that because your voice is louder than ever now. And I just have to thank you for everything you've done for the community at large, and I'm really excited to see how things take off for you. So Keenan Commenton, thanks for being here. And one little quick question before we go: who did the art behind you?
This one, I don't even know. but this one, my buddy Jeff Clausen did that one.
Oh.
But that one, to be honest, that one was just the one that I took from my dad's place because that he didn't want.
That's awesome. I like it. All right. Well, we'll wrap up. And again, thanks a lot for coming.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you later, folks. And thanks for watching. Take some time to reflect on the 30th with regards to our senior management making the wise decision to give us the time off. Thanks for listening and use your voice. All right. See you later, guys.